Blue Collar, 1978. Yaphet Kotto was great in this film, and a lot of you folks probably remember Mr. Kotto from the James Bond movie Live and Let Die. He played the bad guy, Mr. Big, and he was great in it. He was great in a lot of films he did, and he had a very long and successful career. I think Blue Collar is his finest hour. Some people may say that it's some other film, but it's a great film. For those of you who haven't seen it, Blue Collar was written by Paul Schrader. Paul Schrader, of course, did Taxi Driver. He was the writer of Taxi Driver, writer-director of Hardcore with George C. Scott. Blue Collar is a cool movie about guys trying to make a few bucks, make a living, working in the auto manufacturing world. You know, they work on the assembly line in the Detroit area, late 70s. Yaphet Kotto is joined by Richard Pryor, who is great with all his improvisations, and the equally great Harvey Keitel, one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest underrated actors in film history, and another guy with a really long, incredible career. What's really cool about Blue Collar is that Schrader really did capture the struggles of blue-collar workers of the late 1970s and the auto workers of the late 1970s. And then, of course, there's still parallels to struggles today. A lot of different ways you can look at this film. And I just like to just focus on just how great the acting was in this. And there was some controversy because Keitel, Pryor, and Kotto were all promised the lead role, and it turns out to be an ensemble piece, and they're kind of fighting a little bit for camera attention. Kotto's character is an ex-con who has a heart of gold, a good guy, and he's trying to put his life back together. Not to say that him and the other two characters are completely moral, because they come up with a shady way of making some money, but I'm not going to give too much of the plot away. But that shady decision gets him into trouble. And there's the belief on the bad guy's part, again, I don't want to give too much away, that they're going to intimidate Harvey Keitel's character by assaulting his wife. And Kotto's character hears this, overhears him on the phone in a bar or a restaurant. And he kind of double crosses him. And when they show up at Harvey Keitel's house, they don't find Harvey Keitel's wife. They find a very angry, very intimidating Yaphet Kotto who has a baseball bat, and he gives them a bit of America's favorite pastime education with that bat, and it's a pretty wicked scene. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Maybe by today's standard it would be a little bit cruel that, your good guy does a little extrajudicial justice on some very nasty characters by beating them in the legs with a bat. But not too far removed from reality for 1977, 1978. And he's just believable in this role as this tough guy who's got not going to let his friends be walked over by the bad guys, and he steps up to the plate, there's a pun, and takes these dudes out. It's a really cool scene, one of many cool scenes in Blue Collar, and I strongly recommend getting this Blu-ray. Criterion put this out, did they not? Kino Lorber, I'm sorry, it's Kino Lorber, not Criterion. And there's a great commentary track with Paul Schrader. Blue Collar is an outstanding film. It's kind of a forgotten film of the 1970s was one of the greatest decades ever for really, really cool, mature cinema. And a lot of those movies are now considered supreme classics, like The Godfather, Chinatown, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And there's a lot of other films that kind of, slip by the wayside that deserve a second look here or there. And absolutely, Blue Collar is one of them. Anything Yaphet Kotto's in is generally going to be great because Yaphet Kotto is always great. But he is awesome in this movie, and I strongly recommend checking it out for his performance. And he's not the only one who's great in it. Harvey Keitel is great, and Richard Pryor is awesome. He's hysterical. Richard Pryor, sidebar, I know it's a little sidebar here because I'm spending a little bit more time talking about Yaphet Kotto's performance, but I will say this about Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was one hell of an underrated dramatic actor. He was not just a comedian, great comedian, one of the greatest, but he was a damn good actor when given the chance. Richard Pryor was awesome. It's a shame his career kind of went the way it did in the 1980s, where, you know, he just stopped being Richard Pryor. You know, he just started to try to be more family friendly, do PG-rated movies, you know, the Superman and the Toy and all that. And no, that wasn't the Richard Pryor of Which Way Is Up and other great films. But that's a sidebar for another topic for another day. But Yaphet Kotto, one of the fantastic character actors of not just the 1970s, 1980s, and even into his older. He was doing movies well into the late 2000s up until his passing. Really, check out Blue Collar and check out anything with Yaphet Kotto. Well, almost anything. Everybody makes a bad movie here or there.